Whether you've caught it on streaming recently, picked up the DVDs a few years back at the grocery store, or were there when it was originally airing and taped every episode like yours truly, chances are good that if you clicked on this video, you've spent a large portion of your life watching and rewatching Justice League Unlimited. The highly anticipated follow-up to the 2001 Justice League animated series, JLU hit the ground running with an expansive ensemble cast of DC Comics' top-shelf heroes and villains, and nemesis, and even introduced modern audiences to lighter hitters who became fan favorites through the show's outstanding writing and art direction. JLU's reputation precedes itself with how much it's stuck around in our hearts and in DC marketing in the near 2 decades since its conclusion in 2006. And yet, it was actually supposed to end even earlier than that. The second season of the show, or the first if you're going by how the box sets were released for some reason,
Who can keep it all straight?
concluded with the infamously divisive, never-to-be-spoiled epilogue. This episode was intended to be the end of Justice League Unlimited, wrapping up everything from that season, all prior Justice League seasons, and even as far back as the tip of the top of Batman the Animated Series. Epilogue tied it all up in a nice little bow. And then Cartoon Network ordered 13 more JLU episodes. A year later, with the 2-part finale Alive and Destroyer, this show, and the DC animated universe at large, was finally officially concluded, and in style. But Bruce Timm and his creative cohorts are a lot like you and me. Huge nerds who can't help pushing up their glasses and cooking story after story for these super people they love so much.
I'm in no hurry to wind anything down. There are plenty of stories left to tell with these characters.
So why didn't we get more Justice League Unlimited? And what would we have seen if a season 4 did in fact grace our television screens? I tore open all the history books for this one. Remember that JLU episode where the Question has to hack into Cadmus's files, and it's just this very weird, basic-looking series of drop-down menus? Like, I both do and don't want to know what's inside the Meta War December folder. He really should have been using a much more sophisticated browser, like that which brought you today's video, Opera. Opera reimagines just what all is possible with a web browser. Like its sidebar menus for all your social media chats and music players. It's all just right there in a convenient little pocket. I also love the way I can keep my tabs extremely organized with tab islands. Whenever I'm working on a video, I've got like 40 tabs open for referencing my notes, researching, typing up the script, and so on. So using tab islands, I can group those sorts of things together and not lose track of whether I was fast forwarding through a Batman episode or chatting with Dan Reba for the millionth time. You can also mark tabs with emojis to easily remind yourself what's in there and get it right in front of you when you need it. And on top of that, you can even swap workspaces to keep entire swarms of tabs separate from each other. A workspace for work, one for lunchtime TV show binging, for whatever. There's also a free VPN built right into Opera, so you don't have to go subscribe to another app. You just literally flip this on to browse the web privately and securely without anybody logging your activity. Same with the built-in ad blocker. No more third-party extensions clogging up your processor and your brain. And finally, we've got Opera's ARIA tool, which I've found very helpful for when I need to interpret images for video research. Sometimes I'll find a teeny tiny JPEG and be going, what the heck am I even looking at here? I just drop it into ARIA and it's like, hey buddy, this is the cover of Batman Adventures number 4. And I go, oh yeah, you're right, I'm stupid, thanks. Opera's browser really is pretty much exactly what middle school me wanted out of his computer. Everything in the same place, in a colorful layout, with an embedded music player. It just makes me feel good, man. So you could continue using whatever web browser you're using now,
Or something better.
I think Opera's smoother, safer browsing experience is the clear choice. Check out our download link in the description below to start using Opera today.
Finished.
To understand why we didn't get a JLU Season 4, we first have to contextualize why the show was canceled in the first place. According to some of the producers I spoke with for this video, JLU wasn't so much canceled as it was, let's say, running out of steam. After 52 episodes of Justice League and 39 of Unlimited, plus the countless hours of DC animation that led up to these series, the fan-coined Timverse had sort of run its course. Now, this isn't to say that had the show gone on and on through today, I wouldn't be consuming consuming every second of it the moment a new episode dropped. I would be, trust me. But I understand the fatigue. JLU was extremely difficult to produce behind the scenes, and not in the way of studio execs dipping their slimy fingers into the soup too much. In fact, Cartoon Network was the easiest and most trusting of the networks the crew had worked with to date. No, when you have 60 plus superheroes to try and write stories for, scarce time and money, and a whole lot of creative cooks in the kitchen, you don't want to drag things on past their prime lest your project succumb to the dreaded seasonal rot. Fans have argued over the years that the show perhaps even should have ended with epilogue, and that season 3 wasn't as strong as its predecessor's Cadmus arc. Plus, allegedly, Cartoon Network weighed the price tag of JLU against its other original content that wouldn't have to split profits with WB Animation, which, well, you don't have to be Derek Powers to make that kind of call. This is not to say that Ben 10 is the reason JLU stopped. I said allegedly. What I mean is that while I still love the final Legion of Doom season of JLU, it certainly does feel a bit tacked on. That season was, in the words of director Dan Reba, a gift. Extra time with these characters that the fates provided them. So they took the shackles off and just had fun with it. Still, series writer Matt Wayne has said that round about the time of producing the episode Dead Reckoning, they
realized we only had 7 shows left.
Per an interview with Sander Schwartz, then president of Warner Brothers Animation,
it's rare for an action-adventure show to get beyond 52 half hours. Justice League Unlimited lasted longer and for more episodes than most successful animated shows, and it's time to give it a bit of a rest.
When the season finale did air, it was clear this was indeed the series finale. Warner Brothers had also begun to move in a new direction with their home video department, launching the mouthful of a franchise, the DC Universe Animated Original Movies, or DCUAOM as no one calls it. Dooku Age of Mythology. Besides the initial few releases still being Tim-style enough to sort of ease the transition, these direct-to-video titles were inching away from JLU's world so as to not be bound by the DCAU's 14-year history. Bruce Timm wrote on the Toon Zone message boards,
"Zero interest from the folks at home video in revisiting the old continuity. They've invested several $1 million in establishing the new DCU DVD line as its own thing.
There isn't a compelling reason to do new shows."
More like Justice League Limited, am I right? JLU was dead in the water.
That one thing you must remember, or nothing that follows will seem wondrous.
And although the crew felt it was pretty pointless to figure out a game plan for another season that was very unlikely to be picked up by the network, discussions were nevertheless being had about what we could have seen unfold for the DCAU as
the adventure continues.
I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
When I spoke with producer James Tucker on the subject, he told me,
those discussions were done around the midway of the last season, but by the time JLU was winding down, we pretty much knew there wasn't another season coming. By the end of production of JLU, I was already being pulled away to start development on the Legion of Superheroes show, so if BT or Dwayne had any further discussions beyond what we briefly talked about earlier in the season, I wasn't privy to them. The conversation about it was probably no more than a 10-minute what if kind of thing as I recall.
And yet, boy howdy, across the vast cosmos we call the World Wide Web, I have gathered many more than 10 minutes of delightful possibilities, and you're gonna want to hear about them. Now, tons of DCAU content has made its way into our lives in the time since JLU went off the air. A movie here or there, countless young adult novels, and of course, exhibit Comic Bookus Resurrectus. But the majority of this stuff wouldn't have even been a twinkle in anybody's emerald eye back in 2006, and therefore cannot be taken into consideration for what the super fresh W boys would have done 18 years ago had another Justice League season landed in their laps. No, what I would like to do is essentially approach this topic the way Paul Dini and Alan Burnett approached creating Batman: The Adventures Continue, in that they basically pretended like it was more of the original show had destiny not pointed them towards something else instead. Were we to rewind time to the swingin' summer of 2006 and magically greenlight Justice League Unlimited Season 4, what would that look like? This is a world without any knowledge of the future, and where JLU kept going in place of Legion of Superheroes, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and so on. Sorry, James Tucker, I'm not trying to erase all your work from history. This is just a thought experiment, I promise. It's a variant timeline, and we're just gonna roll with it. An easy first move would be to take a look at JL and JLU episodes that were conceptualized and pitched but never got made, like The Fall Guy Guy by Joe Kerr. No, not that guy, this guy. He wrote Paradise Lost and Eclipsed, which involved the Archangel Zariel falling in love with Cheetah and having to decide between destroying Earth and gaining access back into heaven, or, not doing that. Cheetah sacrifices her own life to save a child from falling debris, which sets Zariel on a path of righteousness where he teams up with the Justice League against Lucifer's successor, Asmodel. There was also Misfortune Cookies by the great J.M. DeMatteis, featuring John Jones's comic book-based addiction to Oreos, or Chocos in universe, a story DeMatteis described as the JLU equivalent of Star Trek's The Trouble with Tribbles.
It'll go right to your thighs.
My thighs?
And then you blow up.
And, lest we forget, per Bruce Timm,
For a split second, we considered putting the JL against the All-O squad, Amazo, Despero, Starro, Chemo, and Bizarro, but decided that was too hokey even for us.
but while those are all pretty fun, and I would have loved to see them, none of them are confirmed Season 4 stories. No, the most obvious place we can find evidence of quote-unquote leftover ideas for JLU is, well, JLU. No, not the show, the comic. The comic called the same thing as the show. Don't you love it when that happens? Of the 46 total issues of Justice League Unlimited, the comic, over half of them came out after the cartoon had already ended. And sure, some of these stories borrowed elements from the show's continuity, like this one that took place in Gorilla City and referred to Grodd having returned from space. But the real sauce came when a fellow who worked on the cartoon added his voice to the crowd. In an interview with the World's Finest fan site in 2007, Matt Wayne, who wrote roughly half of Unlimited Season 3, revealed that there were a handful of stories he wanted to tell in the cartoon that didn't make it in time, and he'd instead pitched them to the editors of the tie-in comic.
We'll see how the chips fall.
And, well, at least 3 of them landed right side up. That's how poker works, right? I don't know, I've never played it.
I suck.
Issues 37, 38, and 46 of the JLU comic were all written by Wayne. Matt, not Bruce. We'll come back to number 37 in a sec, but 38 picked up right where the cartoon left off, with Giganta out on a rampage looking to get the attention of the Flash. She blatantly calls back to the hero-villain team-up events of the JLU series finale, where we got this fun little moment between the two characters. Now we get a love triangle of Flash, Giganta, and typical love interest Linda Park, which of course ends in disaster. Number 46 was the final issue of this comic run and was a Green Lantern Corps story that took John Stewart to the GLHQ on the planet Oa, where solar flares from the antimatter universe have come a-knockin' on their door, and it's up to John, Kilowog, and a team of new recruits to hop universes and defeat Sinestro before he implodes the galaxy. And their rings are weak to yellow? Ah, jeez. Now, I saved number 37 for last because its implications are fascinating. This story features the ghostly DC antihero the Spectre, who attacks Belle Reve Prison and easily takes down Justice League heavyweights, unchained from his human host, Jim Corrigan. Corrigan arrives on the Watchtower revealed to be possessed by Deadman, who seeks the help of Batman and Hawkgirl in taking down and re-imprisoning the Spectre. After a horrifically traumatizing run-in with the goddess Ramakrishna, wherein we get a rerun of the Wayne, Thomas and Martha, not Matt, murders as seen in For the Man Who Has Everything, the heroes learn the key to taking down the Spectre and the day is saved. But here's the crazy part, besides half the stuff that just came out of my mouth. In the end, it's revealed that the one who let Spectre loose in the first place and who magically kept Dr. Fate from helping out was none other than the witch Tala, who you may recall seemingly died in the JLU cartoon's finale. Matt Wayne even hinted that he and Dwayne McDuffie both held in heart canon that Tala had a hand in the Darkseid Brainiac switcheroo as a means to screw over Lex Luthor.
Dwayne McDuffie and I did speculate that Tala wasn't as dead as she appeared to be in Alive, and the big arc I'd planned for the comic would have revealed Tala as the big bad. She was such a wild character that it's easy to forget that she's the queen of evil with motive, means, and opportunity. But Bruce Timm and James Tucker certainly never weighed in on that, which isn't to say we don't all have more stories to tell.
So while this Tala-centric arc may not have been where the animated series would have headed per se, there were indeed story arcs for a theoretical season 4 that were pretty damn solidified between the series writing staff. After the airing of Destroyer, McDuffie spoke of the team hot potatoing around
a few different approaches. They couldn't shake me off of Justice League Unlimited with explosives. James Tucker had a pretty strong idea where he wanted to go to if we continued, and I planted the seeds of his proposed season in Alive.
Seeds planted in Alive. Could he be talking about Tala cheating death? Or perhaps something with Brainiac's actual resurrection? After all, the cyber dude is alive in DCAU canon as far as 1,000 years from now, whenever now is. Or maybe it had something to do with outer space. In that penultimate, that means second to last episode, a huge upset to the status quo was the Legion of Doom's Darth Vader swamp head becoming space-worthy. So if any seed were to be planted here, the idea of getting normally Earth-based characters off the planet just might be it. And lo and behold, in 2021, James Tucker finally confirmed our suspicions.
It's time to tweet.
The winner of last video's giveaway is this person. Congratulations! Check your original comment for a reply from us with more info. Do you want to win some cool DC stuff? All you gotta do is leave a comment below answering our question of the day from the end of this video. Then come back next video to see if you won. Also, there's a new shirt in our store based on the TVA from Loki, but it's WDB and it's got reverse flash and alternate DCAU timelines, and do you get the joke? Please buy the shirt. Okay, now here's James Tucker spilling the deets.
I remembered that one of the thoughts we had about continuing the show before we were discontinued was to send the Justice League out into space on a quest and explore.
When jabbed by my incessant Batman-shaped cattle prod, he elaborated,
"It will be a smaller group of Leaguers, maybe to Core 7, on some intergalactic quest or responding to a call for help in another galaxy, and that they would then encounter DC's more space-specific heroes like Adam Strange."
But why are they in space? There's no reason for them to be in space.
On the contrary, my dear Fatson, there's every reason for them to be in space.
Adam Strange had previously appeared in a couple issues of the Justice League Adventures comic, so his presence on the show would have fit rather nicely. And of course, he was a League-adjacent DC character who had never appeared in animation at that point, one who fans often asked about on the discussion boards. So hearing they may have headed Strange's direction, if given the time, is very exciting. Maybe they could even somehow wrap up his Zeta beams with the Zeta Project. I don't know, let a man dream. Funny enough, Bruce Timm had also spoken about the unproduced Season 4 in Toy Fair magazine a few years prior, where he noted Destroyer to be a worthy series finale, despite a few Hawk-centric loose ends still hanging around. He spoke to what he's harped on countless times, that he and his team always did their best to end every season like it would be their last. And since they knew JLU's lifespan was likely to cut off,
Too many bat donuts.
they had only invested a few quick conversations toward the future. Similar to Tucker's ideas, Tim regaled,
We had talked just briefly about doing 13 more episodes. We had an idea of doing something that would be a season-long journey through time. It would give us a chance to revisit a bunch of DC heroes from different periods. We'd go to the far future and see the Atomic Knights, we'd have an adventure with Enemy Ace during World War I, or do something again in the Old West.
If you've been a sci-fi fan for literally any length of time, it's not tough to imagine the concepts of space travel and time travel overlapping. Hell, Captain Kirk did it by accident every other episode.
17 separate temporal violations, the biggest file on record.
Man was a menace.
So in a sense, if we're still pretending we're plopped back in 2006, then a continuation of Justice League Unlimited truly would have been ahead of its
time.
As the current state of superhero films evolves in our modern era, the concept of the multiverse is everywhere. Say what you will about whether or not it's getting old and tedious, or if it's still working for you today, but a whole 13 episodes 20 years ago of the DCAU Justice League popping in and out of various timelines and galaxies and alternate realities, sign me up now. Give me Gargoyle Season 2 in Bruce Timm Batman form. Take my money, Futurama gift goes here. Oh wait, what's this last little bit? There was also talk of possibly doing a whole season taking place in the Batman Beyond universe. Yeah, baby! Do this now even. I don't care. Set it after the epilogue time period. Put Bruce Wayne in the dirt. Let Will Friedle headline another season of Batman Beyond, please. It's extremely easy to geek the hell out about these potential season descriptions. To me, it would mean the show would have ramped up even more than I'd thought possible as an overly devoted 15-year-old. Now, as an overly devoted 33-year-old, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't want just one more season, and sending the heroes off to boldly go where no Justice League has gone before, Look, it sounds cool as fuck. With all these time and space shenanigans in play, JLU Season 4 would be the perfect opportunity to bring in DC concepts and characters that the showrunners always wanted to showcase but never got the chance to. History is littered with unused Bruce Timm character designs for the world of the Justice League. That scrapped Old Man Wayne design for Batman Beyond wound up getting repurposed. Why not Vixen with long hair, or Seattle-ready Green Arrow, or even that girl cyborg from the pilot animation? There's always our pal the Spectre, who's been point of interest name dropped by McDuffie and Timm several times over the years, or the Phantom Stranger, whose rights were unavailable to them at the time but eventually made his way into Timm's art style in a 2020 short. And while others like Firestorm, Black Lightning, and Blue Beetle were always highly requested of the JLU team when the show was airing, said team has never been shy about expressing their gratitude for what they were able to do.
It's DC's playground, we just get to play there. Almost every single time they've said no to our requests, we've managed to find a creative way around it, and more often than not, it's turned out for the better. Bottom line, DC has been very, very good to us overall. They've given us a lot of leeway to mess around with their characters, whole armies of their characters. So if there were a few characters that we would have liked to use but couldn't, I'm not losing any sleep over it.
Matt Wayne just wanted to write more Superman and Wonder Woman. McDuffie alluded to Plastic Man actually making it to the screen instead of just getting a random mention. But by and large, Timm or McDuffie or whoever had the luck of the draw to interact with overzealous fans back in the day, sorry not sorry, would shoot down or otherwise gently dismiss requests for characters.
Wait, where's Nightwing?
Like Batman's partners or more milestone heroes past Static, or especially Hal Jordan. You people pestered poor Bruce Timm for Hal Jordan so much, he made this hilarious forum post.
Stop the presses! We've decided that the supersized JL concept just wasn't working. I mean, really, what were we thinking? And have decided to pare it down a bit. To this end, we've scrapped the existing Season 3 and 4 JLU shows, and the new list of JLU Season 3 guest stars is as follows. 1. Hal Jordan. 2. Hal Jordan. 3. Hal Jordan. 4. Hal Jordan. 5. Hal Jordan. 6. Hal Jordan. 7. Hal Jordan. 8. Hal Jordan. 9. Hal Jordan. 10. Hal Jordan. 11. Hal Jordan. 12. Hal Jordan. And just for variety, 13. Hal Jordan. We haven't decided yet who's going to appear in Season 4, but we're thinking Hal Jordan might make an appearance.
And you know what? Yeah, about that. See, among all the scrapped JLU episode ideas, one seemed to hang on longer than any. If you've seen our Barry Allen video, then you may recall this little convo between the DCAU Brain Trust in a DVD special feature.
What if we brought in the real Hawkman?
Well, you remember what happened. Initially, we were going to do a story with the original 7 from the comics that we had never done. And then
with Hal Jordan and Barry Allen and everything.
When a fan posted to Dwayne McDuffie's old boards asking if there was more to spill about this, Dwayne responded that the crew's original idea was to do an entire episode from the perspective of this original 7 Justice League.
As if they had always been the JLA.
Past Barry, Hal, and Hawkman, this would presumably include the lineup of Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, and since there's only 2 spots left, your guess is as good as mine who we'd see of the Trinity or even other folks entirely. But we would spend the entire episode with this version of the League, like nothing was wrong, as they battle a multiverse-related threat. And in the end, it would be revealed that one of the worlds they saved was, quote, our Justice League. But it didn't stop there. The episode would even have gone as far as to change the opening title sequence to feature these versions of the characters in place of the expected DCAU founding members. And according to McDuffie,
we were talking about it as early as Season 2 of Justice League, maybe before.
Can you imagine CGI Aquaman and Hal Jordan Gumbying around in there?
Oh, that's right. You don't have to imagine.
This was a concept, I'm told, that was even being considered for A Better World, the Justice Lords episode, but it was deemed too expensive. Can we say Star Trek Enterprise stole this idea? I'm gonna say Star Trek Enterprise stole this idea. So with all that gobbledygook in the mixing bowl, can we paint a decently clear picture of what Justice League Unlimited Season 4 might have looked like cohesively? As far as I can educatedly wish, we would have gotten another season-long story arc. The League would pick up on a distress call of some kind coming from the depths of space. Heading off to investigate, they'd find themselves bouncing between a variety of strange and fantastical planets and realities.
And you people, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
All the while, wibbly-wobbly wormhole type stuff would absolutely not be off the table, sending the League back and forth in time. Ideally, I could see the main antagonist of such a season being a DC villain that's both a major cosmic force and who we haven't seen yet, like Imperiex, Mageddon, or even the Anti-Monitor. Hey, remember, this is an alternate timeline where we may be butterfly affecting the Camus and Tomorrowverse movies out of existence. Don't you dare comment saying that's a good thing. Those are good movies most of the time. Perhaps this mysterious menace is who, in fact, sent the distress signal to begin with. Hell, toss in a trip to the source wall again, if only so we can get some similar beats from the Justice League comic a few years ago that featured a very similar roster to the cartoon. And in the climax of this season, we may see these temporal shenanigans result in a season 5 even, set entirely among the cast of the Batman Beyond era Justice League Unlimited. The team, not the show nor the comic. You understand.
It's a masterpiece, James. Complete. Comprehensive.
Look, it's all speculation, but one thing we know for sure wouldn't have found its way into another JLU season: the flashback sequence from Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Among all of these super interesting and compelling story ideas floating around, Dwayne McDuffie made it very clear that he and others considered Tim Drake's capture and torture at the hands of the Joker to be an event that simply cannot be reached, in a manner of speaking.
It hasn't happened yet. I'd be surprised if our president ever caught up with Return of the Joker.
Matter of fact, depending on who you ask, that event is only part of a possible history anyway. It may never happen.
I prefer to look on the future as something which is not written in stone.
To me, it does happen, and you can be sad for me if you want, but I always think it adds resonance to a hero's mission to have some defining element of tragedy in his background, don't you? So while sliding timelines versus Timmy's height just keeps getting more and more ridiculous, we very likely wouldn't have seen these events unfold from any other perspective than we have already. Though, wouldn't it be kind of funny for Batman to finally come home after 13 episodes of fighting aliens and Bigfoot during the Revolutionary War, and somebody has to be like, yeah, so while you were gone, your kid got hit over the head with a comically large hammer and we don't know where he is. Iced Mocha? The last time we saw Joker, he'd been mind-melted by Ace of the Royal Flush Gang, left in a drooling catatonic state. And Dwayne did go on to say he expected Joker would get out of that somehow and go on to do battle with Batman many more times before that fateful flashback. So maybe Joker would have appeared in season 4, barring bat embargoes of course. Perhaps Ace's death in that episode we don't talk about for other reasons would have jolted Joker out of his coma to wreak hysterical havoc once again. Or he was just faking it.
Because I'm already crazy.
Despite another season of JLU never coming to fruition, it's truly thrilling to think about the repercussions its existence could have had on its own and our universe going forward. On a meta level, would we have gotten stuff like Justice League vs. the Fatal 5 or the Earth 12 Beyond comics, at least in the same form, if one or both of those eras of the DCAU had already received significantly more spotlight? Would we have wound up seeing more of DCAU Aquaman, considering that Smallville spin-off that tied up his rights never actually happened? Within the canon itself, if time travel is on the table, does this mean we might have seen Supergirl one more time? If we're headed to other planets, would the League run across Amazo again? You know, since he was just like, I don't know how to fight this zombie, so I'm gonna leave forever now. Dangling plot threads could have wrapped up like the fate of Apocalypse, the Hawk Lantern Love Pentagon, or whatever happened to Lex and Darkseid after their super secret handshake. While we have gotten answers to some of these things eventually in either recent comic books or shaky half sentences from producers, psst, the bald baddies got fused into the source wall. It's just not the same as seeing these things in motion on TV with voice actors, with a musical score, with that sick title sequence, and very likely, as heartbreaking as it is, we never will. In a world without our Batman, and with an ever-changing corporate landscape both creatively and monetarily, is a #JL reunion even a real possibility? I'm not trying to be all pessimistic here, believe me, there are ways I think it could be done. Give us that JLU comic about the near apocalypse of '09. That thing was sick, where is that? Keep renewing Batman The Adventures Continue with extra guest stars until Ty Templeton's hand falls off. Do animate it, but just toss us straight into that Batman Beyond time period and bring in the present day League somehow. Have them all team up to reunite Zeta and Dr. Selig. It's perfect, it literally wraps up everything.
Good old Kappa Zeta Jones.
The folks behind the show clearly had more tales to tell, and the DC universe is such a vast playing field that the possibilities truly are Unlimited. I'd give anything to hear Susan, Michael, Phil, George, Maria, and Carl one last time. Come on, WB, you know you'll rake in $1 bajillion. We can make it in time for the 20-year anniversary of the JLU finale if we hurry. Truth be told, we'll never actually rewind time and get more of the Justice League Unlimited we loved exactly the same as we left it, especially missing those we've lost along the way. But we never know what the future will hold for the DC animated universe, DC animation as a whole, or just plain superhero media in general. And it's always worth aspiring to meet the optimism and heart of our dear departed Dwayne McDuffie.
Everyone who works on these shows is always looking to top what we've done before. But Bruce Timm is a guy who likes to reinvent the show, challenge our expectations pretty much every week. The spirit of creative experimentation, the willingness to push at boundaries of what's considered possible in an adventure series, is what keeps taking the franchise to unexpected and often delightful places.
Well, I'll drink to that.
My question of the day is a simple one. What would you have liked to see in another season of JLU? More Wonderbat? Grodd coming back? Maybe Hal Jordan? Or Hal Jordan? Or like Hal Jordan? Let us know in the comments. Thank you again to Opera for sponsoring this video, and a huge thank you to all the folks you see listed here who support us on Patreon. Help us get to 200 of you and we'll analyze whether or not Teen Titans and The Batman are in the same universe.
It's gonna be big.